First, I'd love for you all. There are many people from different films, so I'd love for all of you to first introduce yourselves, which films you represent. Obviously, there are some people who unfortunately could not be here today, but for all of those who are here, welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Oh. Hi everyone, I'm the writer director of Mike. Sorry for the hiccup.
I'm Benjamin Tell. I wrote and directed Infinity.
My name is Ngọc Anh. I'm another Nguyễn. So I wrote the song Motherland and made it together with Lan My Lê and Hiền Võ.
Hi, my name is Pauline Nuez. I'm French, as you can hear. I played in Accident and Emergencies, and unfortunately, Lyndon, the director, cannot be here, so I'm here instead.
Hello, my name is Mi, and I'm the director of Motherland, and we just came from Germany to. Hi, I'm Hiền Võ, and I'm the European editor of Motherland.
Hi everyone, I am Laura Espinel. I am the editor of Zu Hause ist dort, wo die Sternfrüchten sauer sind, in English. Home is there where the starfruits are sour.
And I'm Tony Bui, and I did the camera work for Homeland is where the starfruits are sour.
It's a long name, I'm sorry for that. So Home is where the starfruits are sour. Yeah, we did that together. I'm the director and the guy up there hugging my grandmother. And yeah.
Right, so for the directors, I love the directors and hopefully just one representative so we can keep a short on the table. And everyone else, you can still cheer on your favorite director as we start this panel discussion. So if you'd like, you can get seated, or if you want to stand like this, we can. But this will be around a 20-30 minute discussion, so if you'd like to stand, if you'd like to sit, whichever first. But welcome all, and thank you all for showing your many different forms of love and how it's actualized, where regardless of country, regardless of culture, each of us is grasping with love in different generations through husband, wife, through children, through grandparents and parents. And what we got out of this film is how complex love is. And so the first question I wanted to ask for each director is, how do you try to portray your type of complex love to your audiences, and what type of complex love do you try to portray? So we can start off with Đức Anh with Mike, and then we can go on to your to the rest. And for your film, if you have more than one representative, I think just for concise purposes, I think just having one representative would be fine, or two, and then the rest can sit down and can support your panelists. So thank you. So I'll start off with Đức Anh, and we'll move on to the remaining films.
Yeah, so my film, of course, like, the love is not really spelled out, but there is a lot of love that is being discussed in the film, and the main thing I think is a lot of it has to do with your love for your identity, and a love for your religions and your families to that extent, about how we perceive our family once we're far away from them, how are we able to keep in contact, and then to that extent, how do we love our religions, the religions that we stick by, and how do we love ourselves as Vietnamese, and how do we deal with that when you're in an environment that's extremely strange and different from who you are. So it's rather a cautionary tale of how you choose to love yourself.
For Infinity, just wanted to thank the Viet Film Fest for accepting our film. This is like a place where I really came of age as a college student, just learning more about Vietnamese filmmaking and meeting other Vietnamese filmmakers. And also wanted to shout out like the Ethnic Studies Department at Cal State Fullerton, because that's where I discovered this story in one of my textbooks actually. It's based on a real life historical figure of Dorothy Toy and Paul Wing. They were Japanese American dancers who were passing as Chinese until the war broke out and they were outed as Japanese. So In order to avoid the concentration camps, they had to think to themselves, do we flee and give up our passions of dance, or do we stay and risk it all? The real life story itself was very tragic. They gave up dancing, they never danced again. So as a college student here in Orange County, I kind of thought to myself and fantasized what their final performance would look like. And so that came for the inspiration of the film and actualizing that love of just like not only man and woman and partners, but also as collaborative partners and this love for their art form. And so, yeah, that's how it came to be.
I'm going to speak about Motherland because I wrote the song and the lyrics. So when I grew up, I rejected being Vietnamese, growing up in a small town with only white people and my family. And for me, showing love to my family and my motherland was going back to Vietnam when I was 20 years old. So in the lyrics, when I talk about motherland, and I speak to the you in the song, I mean Vietnam, of course, you know, my people, so to say, my heritage, but also my parents, you know, like, I get you now, I understand you now. So I try to speak about these two different aspects.
Yes, so for our film, it's quite similar to what you've just explained. So I was born and raised in Germany, and my parents came to Germany when they were just about 18, and I just want to know like how the relationship between my grandparents and my parents worked, because they were separated when they were so little, and through that find out more about how my relationship worked with my parents, and maybe understand myself and my relationship with my parents better by just seeing how their parents are and how they live together and how they love each other. And that was something that like was on my bucket list for a long time, and I always said that my Vietnamese is not good enough to be able to speak to them in a way that I could really understand them, but I think this movie and this project helped me to really push myself and learn like through flashcards like the necessary words to finally speak to my grandparents about themes like love and how their relationship worked. And yeah, so this came to be, and I don't know, it's quite like the film in the beginning. It was first it was between my grandparents and how they love is so different to what I've perceived between my parents, and how this like doesn't or does translate to how you love your children. And I was really surprised when my grandfather spoke so openly about his love for his wife, my grandmother, but was so surprised about the notion of telling like your adult children that you love them as well. Yeah, so these things are kind of that we've tried to weave them together and find like a common theme. And yeah, so with the help of my editor Laura, it was quite the ride to like find the right moments and time frames to really put it together. But I think yeah, he did a really great job.
Alright, thank you. Moving on to Holly.
Yeah, for accident and emergencies, it's I would say it's a difficult project because it was the first directing of Lindan. She's an actress, and when she had to choose a subject, because she did the project in a special program, I cannot explain it now because it will take too much time. She could choose whatever she wanted, and every time she started to write, it was always about her grandmother. And the grandma you see in the movie is actually Lindan's grandmother. So the movie is about love and the fear of losing someone. And I think that everybody here can really understand what it's like to being afraid of losing someone and love your siblings, but don't really know how to express your feeling also, and to be so afraid to lose someone that what will happen after that. So yeah, it's about loving and being afraid to lose the person you love.
I think that's a great segue into our next general question, focusing on love, because when I see these films, what really strikes me is not just how much, all the different ways that you've shown love in your films, but all the different ways that love is maybe not shown, or the complications of love. And so this type of love, often Vietnamese and cultures around the world, is spoken or unspoken. And the title of this short film series is Love Actualized. And what does it mean to have these types of loves that are maybe never spoken, never actualized, never fulfilled? And so I want to ask again to all the filmmakers, how do you try to convey this actualization or even non-actualization of love in your films? So who'd ever like to start, you can give you the mic. All right, we'll start with the guy from Mike.
I can just go right ahead. So for me, I think like Mike is very much more like about the non-actualizations of love in some way, because for the entire film, it was more of a battle for him to kind of wonder like, do I love myself enough? Do I love, and miss my family enough? Do I miss my home and miss my culture enough to be able to keep up with the pressures of this really simple external pressures of people just simply being ignorant is something so simple, and it can be so antagonistic to yourself at the same time, especially when you're in that type of environment and you're in that type of age where you feel the need to blend in. So there was not much of an actualization of love, rather than that it is, as I mentioned before, very much a cautionary look into how you can be easily ignoring the sort of the comfort that type of love you have with your identity and your families, how easy you can shred it in exchange for a sense of acceptance, but at what cost,
This is a great question, and it's kind of difficult to answer because our film in particular features Japanese Americans. And so I always think to know another person's suffering or another community's suffering is to really know them. And all our suffering is very similar in that regard, especially being like a child of refugees myself. There's a lot of stories in past family histories that I don't even know about myself. And so I think I learned that through and try to piece that through other people's histories and other communities' histories. And I think a lot about my own grandmother too, which watching all you guys' films really touched me because thinking about her history and her past and how it informed the storytelling philosophy that we put into Infinity. Because on her voyage over to America during the war, her youngest daughter was kidnapped and she never got to see her again. And so I think a lot about reunions and second chances as a theme, a connecting theme through all our films. And that's the kind of philosophy and energy that I brought to Infinity as well. It's just what if these dancers had a second chance to really put on this final performance, even though it was a fantasy, it never actually happened. I think the love actualized in that and the unspokenness of it all is about really the physicality and the kineticism shown through the dancing, and how the dancing was the story about their love and their history too, of when they first fell in love to when they lost their child to the breaking of the war. It's all encompassing in a singular dancing experience, and so that's how we want to show it in our film.
Thank you, Benji.
In Motherland, I have a lyric line that says, I was a child oblivious to the home I had, and I had to learn a language that I couldn't speak. And what I mean by that is quite literally to learn Vietnamese, because I used to have a very broken communication with my parents. They would speak Vietnamese to me and I'd insist on replying in German. So learning that language was a way of showing my love, because I want to be able to talk to you in a deeper way. But then also to learn their love language, which wasn't to tell me I love you, but which was them making food for me or, providing for me. And then I think in the music video itself, we're going to Quê, the homeland, and it's spending time with my family and with my dad's relatives that he can't be with, but for us to go there and honor that family heritage, I think was our way of showing that love for my family without actually telling them I care about you. but I guess through actions, like physically being in Vietnam, regularly going to Vietnam to show them I care about where we come from.
Thank you.
So about accidents and emergencies, I can only speak by my experience because, as you can see, I'm Vietnamese, but I was adopted when I was 4 months. So I had to learn a lot about our cultures and our people, and I'm still learning. And as far as I learned today, Vietnamese people are really shy in a way to really share their feeling, and sometimes the way of sharing their love is unfortunately to be angry at some point. So I would say that in the movie, for Tu and for Nam also, they manage to communicate because they are so scared to lose someone that in a way they never say I love you. They confess to each other like, okay, you rock and you are not that bad, you know. But I think that is the maximum they can say about loving each other. And I think that if we can just think about what's going after the movie, maybe they will find the strength to tell each other that they love them, and also to Ba maybe. So I think that words don't matter sometimes. It's just in actions. But I know that it's difficult sometimes to not hear what you want to hear.
To answer your question, I think the key word here was kind of like the process, the filmmaking process. Like Hui said before, it was very overwhelming, going with a lot of feelings through these moments that he had lived with his grandparents and maybe his memories, and there was also kind of like frustration and angst, fear, and through the process of filmmaking and film editing, these other feelings just went away, and at the end, Hui managed to come to a place where he could understand more than just like ask for questions and tell like why and why did you do this, but like having understanding for his parents. Like they couldn't do it better, but like he wants to change that, and he's like open to it, and that was kind of like the actualizing the love, like the film making process. And I think it's similar for you. It's like doing the film. It was kind of like a way to understand and getting there. So I think that was how it happened to us in the editing studio.
Thank you. And I love the way that, I would love the way that all of the filmmakers were able to incorporate parts of their personal lives, especially as all of us trying to find some connection to the films and our own lives as well. And so I'd like to move on to some specific questions. And since we're on Home is Where the Star Fruits Taste Sour, I'd love to ask Hui about your personal experience, and especially because for those who don't know Vietnamese folktales, you know, the home is where the star fruit tastes sour is an original line from Quê hương là chùm khế ngọt, which means home is where the star fruits taste sweet. And there's always this sense of connection, reconnection, that you kind of go through generations, trying to understand your parents by going home, finding your grandparents. And I wanted to ask you about that personal experience and what you got out of it and how you managed to weave it into a film.
Well, that's kind of a complex question, but maybe I can share in notion. So I already it was kind of always something that I was afraid of, just like Laura said, to have my grandparents like pass away before I ever really talked to them. And this film and this process really helped me to go through it and find the courage to just try and see how much I can really understand. And and it's funny because when I talk to my grandfather about how he like portrays, how he sees and perceives his love for his wife and for his children, I think I already knew like that my parents show love in a very different way than I'm used to from the social circle that I've built for myself in Germany. But I think I really needed to hear that from my grandfather as well, and to really hear that maybe my parents weren't just they were children themselves and couldn't, like, when your parents don't teach you something or they teach you something different, that's the same thing that you will teach your kids, and maybe that's okay, and maybe it's okay for me as well to share this kind of notion with my parents and don't like copy what I see in films or from my friends and apply it to my own life, but to really live this way of showing your feelings for each other. And yeah, I don't know if that really answered your question, but maybe I just leave it at that.
No, and I love the the communication. That if you really want to learn about the way that we communicate love and communicate with those that we love in order to learn more and to show our love through that. And so I want to move on to Mike and Đức Anh for Mike, since in your story you have this interesting, towards the end you have Hiệp, and instead of communicating with his mother, he communicates, but in a very interesting way. He lies to his mother and he says, "I'm doing fine, everything is perfect." Not totally High School Musical, but the mom says, "I'm glad that you're fitting in." And so I wanted to ask you about why you included that lie in, and what you tried to convey through that in the communication.
I feel like everyone kind of lied to their parents in some forms like that. I feel like sometimes, and especially if you're Vietnamese in some way, I guess, for me. It's sort of like, you kind of feel, and I love that, the roster of films that we get to see today alongside Mike, it really helped inspire that idea as well, which is that, there is that sort of like unspoken love that you're just sort of passing down generation and generations, and the generation after feels the need to sort of like respond to that love also unspokenly. And I feel like whether it's selfish or not, that lie is sort of like a form of love, no matter the way that we see it. It might not be a good form of love. I think all love should be honest, but that's the way that we kind of love. We love our parents sometimes by protecting them from the pain. We don't, in those kind of situations when you're international and you're far away from home and your parents about to go to sleep and you're still at school, you don't want your parents to worry at night thinking, is my children's going to do all right? And it's inherently is very selfish, and also inherently very much full of love, of trying to protect your parents because you love them so much. So for me, I guess that's really the main reason why, but also another side of it would just to connect to that sort of like teenagehood of you lying in all sort of way, including lying about how you feel.
And sometimes the love that we have, that we show our children and our parents, is the only love we know, and that's something that we appreciate and we actually celebrate with our different cultures. And so I want to move on to especially Ngọc Anh and Lan My Lê in the Motherland, where you talk about, we've definitely leave so many parts of your personal life in a kind of nostalgic way, both in the past and the ways that you move on. So I did want to ask, what is that personal story that you try to weave into a music video, and what did you want the audience to get out of that? For both of you.
Yeah, so the song is by Ngọc Anh, so it is about her personal story. But I think the connection that we had is that we, and the whole film team and also the project that where this music video was being made, is that we have compassion for what she's feeling and what the song represents and what she said also earlier. So we basically flew to Vietnam, and behind the camera we got to know her family, and we went there, we ate there with them. It was a whole like emotional process, and I mean the music video is just like a collection of these moments, but like in real life it was just so much more emotional for all of us, I think, because we were showing them the VHS material from themselves and her when she was a baby, and also to show like how life in Germany looked like, because sometimes, I mean, they just don't know how it is overseas. There's just like, it's like, like they think maybe like, oh yeah, like over there it's so much better and everything, but there's no really a sense of feeling how it could be overseas. And so that was also like the documentary part about the music video, that I'm like sang the song in front of the family and showed the photos and VHS material. And I think for us, like Hien and me, was just also very precious to see like very old material of like life in Vietnam, in Dreh, because I have no, like I've never seen like material from like the 90s or like, you know, like grandparents' generation. So it was not like, it's obviously not my family, but it just felt still so emotional, and because I can relate to that and how it must have been that time. And so that was like our connection to the music video.
And
I would like to add that for me, as Motherland is an ode to Vietnam, right? I wanted to show that it's not only my family that I connect with, but that really I have my own personal relationship with that, as I went to live in Vietnam when I was 20, you know, by myself. So that's why you see me alone a lot, and my favorite place is in Hanoi. And then what was so special for me was 10 years after I lived in Vietnam and really realized, oh my God, this is so precious to be Vietnamese. I was able to take all of the young students with this project to Vietnam and share with them my experience of being Vietnamese German. And it was the first time that I was in Vietnam with a group of friends and to share this hybrid culture. And that's why it was really important to me to also add those scenes where we're together are in it as friends. Yeah.